All right, everybody, let's talk about methods. Methods are the big part of classes. They make things happen. They are the actions, they're the doers, the verbs. Everything else in a class is these methods. Constructors and variables tend not to take too much room, and these guys get all the show here. So methods are the things that a class can do. They're actions. They can be calculations, reading or modifying variables, printing, or pretty much anything else. If you could think of it, a method can do it. This is where the flexibility of classes comes from. This is where all that customization comes from, is in the form of methods. We are familiar with methods from especially a lot of the free response question practice we've done throughout the year, but we haven't necessarily talked fundamentally about what methods are. So here we have some example methods: public string get name, get age, speak, age next year. So clearly there's some similarities going on with these first four, and there's some newer stuff going on with the second four. We're going to split this up. So there's methods that are usually included in a class that are used all the time. They are called accessor methods and mutator methods. They both are based on the variables in a class, specifically these instance variables. First of all, accessor methods provide access to the variables in a class. They usually have the nickname getter methods, as in they get the information you ask for. You can see in this example, we have an accessor or a getter method for each of the instance variables, name and age. And so we try to name them similarly every time. Get name, get age. That way it's really clear about what they're for and what they do. They're pretty basic at the end of the day. Public string get name, public int get age. Look at this. All it does inside, return name, return age. They just take the value of the variable and they send it back out. So no trickery there, just pretty straightforward. On the other hand, we have mutator methods. We can access the information here, we can get it with getter methods. Sometimes we want to change, modify, or mutate the information in a variable though, and that's what a mutator method allows. So we will usually nickname mutator methods as setter methods, S-E-T-T-E-R. So they set the values of the variables, or they set variables to new values. So you can see that we also had a mutator method for each of our variables. We named them appropriately: set name, set age. We have both of them down here. And these ones are just a little bit more complicated than our getter methods. So they take in a value as a parameter, and this value is going to be the new value we want to assign to our variable. You'll notice some similarities here from our constructors. The value we would set n name to in a constructor was n. And here, we're again bringing back n. It's really important to know that's not the same n as before. It's going to be a different value, a different time it's being called, but we're assigning it the same name because it's a name that kind of makes sense. Same thing here with a. So sometimes there'll be logic associated with these, so it'll decide, is this age appropriate? A great example is, would it make sense to set someone's age to -5? I would argue probably not. And so you'll see in section 5 of this unit, when we talk about these mutator methods in depth, that sometimes it's not as simple as just saying age equals a. Sometimes we want to include some logic in here using those conditionals from unit 3 to make sure we're not changing a variable like age to a value that doesn't make any sense. So outside of accessor and mutator methods, these tend to be straightforward. We can do anything else. The world is our oyster. So we could do a lot of different things. I gave 2 examples in this class that we're working on here: speak and age next year. And while these are really simple, I think they highlight some of the really basic capabilities that these things can offer. So speak takes a string that's nicknamed saying, and it prints out a little statement saying that this person is saying that phrase, whatever they said. If they said hello world, it would say Mr. G says hello world. If it was hi, it would say Mr. G says hi. And it kind of makes a nice little output in the console. Particularly useful? Not always, but it's starting to show some of these capabilities. And you can see we can use the instance variables here too. Like I'm just calling name, which is really useful. The age next year method doesn't have any parameters. See, these parentheses are empty. and it just returns the value of age plus 1. So it's doing some really, really basic math for us, but it's math that we don't have to worry about doing ourselves. Really, really important is the idea of return. So we see some methods have return, some methods don't. How do we distinguish that? When you are looking at the header of a method, this is a header, this is a header, you want to look for a data type before the method name. So our method name is age next year. Before it here, we have int. That is what's called the return type. So when we return a piece of information in this method, that piece of information should be an integer. Since age is an integer and 1 is an integer, when we add them together, we get an integer. So we're doing that successfully here. When it's not supposed to return anything, we use the keyword void. So now you see return doesn't even come up. We are not sending back any information. You'll notice mutator methods are void. They're not sending back information. They're just modifying. Whereas getter methods or accessor methods will share their data type with the variable they represent, right? Name is a string, so this one is a string type. Age is an int, so this one is an int type. So we can send information back with return by establishing the data type in the header. At the end of the day, methods can do anything. Your only limit with methods is your imagination. And I say that in the most sincere way. You'll see throughout this year the problems I give you, the things you come up with, the problems the College Board gives you get crazy. They decide they can do anything with a method because you really can. So we are almost done with this section. We've established all three pieces of a class, the variables, the constructors, and the methods. And now we need to talk a little bit about a keyword we have been mostly ignoring this whole time in the form of public and private.